Hi, my name is Julia, and on this channel I talk about art, books, and museums. And if this is something you want more in your life, then you're welcome to subscribe. Last weekend we got back from Armenia, where we spent a wonderful week with our parents. Here in Germany, we have a friend who is Armenian and for whom Armenia is always a first choice country for his own vacations. So he was repeatedly inviting us to come visit this wonderful country, so we finally made it. And we're glad we did it because Armenia is a beautiful country. Modest, but beautiful. Just as anywhere in the world, if I travel somewhere, I try to get acquainted with the local art and book culture, and eventually I select my top list of places I can shamelessly recommend to others. So here's my list for Armenia, and particularly its capital city, Yerevan. Located in the city center next to the Charles Aznavour Square, this is a great bookstore with the books in different languages, but mainly Armenian, English, and Russian. When you enter it, it seems a bit small, but there is a second floor, so don't miss that out. There's a nice section with the books on art and art history, but also there is a cozy working place with a nice view onto the Charles Aznavour Square. I really wanted to buy one book on the history of Yerevan in Russian, but it cost about 70 euro, and books in English in general cost a bit more than I usually pay here in Germany. I see how this bookstore is very attractive for locals who read in various languages, but also for travelers who forgot to get a book for a trip and in a desperate need for one. Must visit for all the visitors. Located in the heart of Yerevan on the Republic Square, this building is a house for two museums, the History Museum of Armenia and the National Gallery of Armenia. They require different tickets, so don't be confused and make sure you get the correct one to the National Gallery or the History Museum, depending on what you want to see. Unfortunately, during our visit, some of the sections were closed. From the main collection, we only had access to the Middle Age art in Armenia, which is a collection of mainly carefully executed replicas of the frescoes found throughout the whole country in different monasteries and churches. This is a great way to ensure that the heritage won't be lost forever, considering the fact that frescoes in general are very difficult to preserve in their initial environment. There was also one small basement section that is called Jakob Gurdjieff Hall and dedicated to the work of the sculptor. For a long time he lived in Paris and worked at the Rodin's studio, so the influence of Rodin's expressionism and raving at that time various new art movements is very much present in his works. The rest of the available halls were temporary exhibitions, and I enjoyed all of them. There is one dedicated to the nude and body image in Armenian art in different times. It was really nice to learn about some of the artists that worked in the beginning of the 20th century, whose artworks were quite pioneering at that time. For example, Melkom Kebabjan, who worked in Turkey and France, honestly couldn't believe that this artwork of his, for instance, was created in 1920s. Another exhibition was about one of the most famous Armenian artists, Martiros Saryan, and his work as book illustrator. This is a subject I'm very interested because it is blatantly combines two of my favorite things, books and art, so I enjoyed that too. And finally we got to see an exhibition about Armenian Impressionism. I'm not the greatest appreciator of Impressionism, but I enjoyed seeing Armenian artists creating rural scenes and showing off their ability to catch sunlight in all its glory. So the reason I wanted to visit this museum was obviously the classical Armenian art and the works of one of the most famous Armenian artists, Hovhannes Ayvazovsky, baptized as Hovhannes Ayvazyan. I've seen his works in State Russian Museum in St. Petersburg, and as any person, I was impressed. So I thought, since I'm in Armenia, I could perhaps, learn more about him. But unfortunately not this time. That section of the museum was closed for the visitors. So I decided to treat myself with a book. I went to the museum shop and got myself a book about Ayvazovsky art. It is still sealed, so let's open it together and see what's inside. When I was a school student, we had sometimes an assignment to write an essay about a particular academic painting. So every study learning book had inserted images of those paintings, and I remember one of the striking ones were always from Ayvazovsky, usually because they always included those gorgeous prints of his seascapes. For many people, he's indeed a definition of marine art. And I think he deserves this title because not only he managed to produce large-scale paintings, the one I saw in St. Petersburg, for instance, was 3 meters by 5. Another reason is that, as far as I remember from that audio guide in the museum, he worked in situ, so he often went to the sea during its rough time, would make sketches and drafts, and only then finish them in the studio. But even with this preparation, it is still difficult to capture the waves convincingly. So yeah, I'm glad I got the book, but I guess I need to go back there once again to study his paintings in real life closely. For now, let's move on to the next destination. For a little break, I recommend to check out this coffee shop. It is located near Aram, which is a research institute and an archive of the rare manuscripts and books. So if you visit it, or if you just happen to be in that area, I would recommend get inside this cafe and appreciate the interior. The reason I added this place into my list is that before coffee shop, there was actually a bookstore with a selection of books on art and culture in different languages. However, it is now closed and the coffee shop is open instead, but they preserved the original architectural elements and even some of the paraphernalia reminiscent of its literary past. After a little coffee break, we continue our road into another museum/cultural center, Cafesjian Center for the Arts. It is located in the so-called Yerevan cascade. It is a great place to hang out in the summer because basically it's a fountain cascade decorated with the sculptures from the Cafesjian collection. We went there in April, so fountains hadn't started working yet, but expect them from May till maybe September, October. Gerard Cafesjian is an Armenian-American philanthropist and art collector who undertook the renovation of the cascade in 2002. In 2009, the center was opened together with a sculpture garden in front of the cascade and the escalator gallery with the art and design pieces of various modern and contemporary artists. These are the parts of the art center that are accessible for visitors for free 24 hours, but certain exhibition halls are open only on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, so keep it in mind when planning to visit it. I enjoy this center very much, especially the sculpture garden with some of the most renowned artists such as an American Robert Indiana and his famous love sculptures, Korean Ju Yong-ho and his artworks made of recycled tires, or Colombian Fernando Batero and his distinguished proportions of the models, such as here in Woman with Cigarette, Roman Warrior, and the Cat. The cat eventually became a mascot of the art center. His traces at the entrance, for example, lead you to the museum library and souvenir shop, where you can buy a kid's book that is called We're Going to the Museum, presented by the cat himself. So I have this thing with the artist studios. I love to visit them. So I couldn't miss the house and studio of Martiros Saryan. Saryan was a Soviet Armenian painter, and what I like about his works is that despite the prevailing at that time Soviet realism, he stayed true to his roots, his own culture, and created some of the most vibrant paintings I know. The area around the museum is also really cute. The Martiros Saryan street, on which the museum is located, has a nickname among locals, the Wine Street, because for 2 days in May, the street will attract wine lovers from all over the world for its wine festival. That is what I call to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You enjoy wine and art, it's all in one place. The next step is the Mirzoyan Library, a hidden jewel of the Yerevan backyards. It was established first as a private library available for all the visitors for free by the Armenian contemporary photographer Karen Mirzoyan. Soon they realized that it's hard to attract people to the library, so they decided to open a small cafe on site. Since then, it gained popularity among locals and among tourists. I stumbled upon it accidentally with my mom, and if she hadn't insisted to go check that little backyard we were passing by, I wouldn't have been able to talk about it at all. And so when I asked our friend about this place, he confirmed that this is indeed a quite famous one, worth visiting. So don't take my words for that, it's a legit place to hang out. But what I truly appreciate is indeed this little library with a splendid collection of books on art and especially photography. I talked to the lady who works there and she explained me that they have these rotating photo exhibitions. When I filmed this video, the works of Samuel Sagatelian were on display under the title The Great Navigation. For the series, he cut the photos from the family photo archive and put it in the environment he finds himself in. So in a sense, it is a collage created not in post-production, as it usually is, but directly in real life. That lady who works there also told me that they're going to find bigger space soon and will be probably moving to another location, but it's not known yet which one exactly, so by the time you visit Yerevan, the location and its appearance might look a bit different, but I'm sure the new location will be as great as the current one. So we hanged out a bit with my mom and then moved further to our final destination. This is probably the number one place to go if you want to buy souvenirs or gifts from Yerevan. There are indeed a lot of local designers who sell their products, so I'm sure everybody can find something interesting. But what caught my eye is obviously a big section of second-hand books. In Armenian, English, Russian, French, German, fiction, non-fiction, art books, you name it. I wish I came there a bit early during my trip because on the last day, obviously, my funds were, well, let's put it simply, depleted. But still, it was a pleasure to see the booksellers and old books and so many of them. Great stuff. I definitely need to come back and pick up a couple of books on Armenian art and maybe some archaeological treasures. I do believe that Armenia is one of the underrated countries in terms of their artistic capabilities that are rooted in their old traditions. They may lack theoretical and philosophical basis, they may act intuitively and sometimes opportunistically, but it does not negate their great potential. I would argue that some sort of biennale like Manifesta, for instance, could bring attention of the international community to Armenia and that region in general. There's been an attempt indeed in 2020. They announced the first Yerevan Biennale. According to their Instagram account, it took place between October the 1st, 2020 and January the 17th, 2021. Traditionally, the next festival should be in 2 years. Hence, all of them are called biennale or biannual, once in 2 years. 2 years. But it seems it's not happening. The Instagram is kind of dead. The last post is from 2021. There are no announcements that I could find, or maybe I'm looking the wrong direction, I don't know. Again, there are 1,000 reasons to cancel it. Constant political tension, war on the borders, problems with budgets. I get it. It's just pity that a lot of talented people miss opportunity and visibility. But again, talking about it is basically opening a huge Pandora box of cultural self-presentation on the international art arena after Soviet Union. This is the whole conversation for another video, and I'm not sure I'll be able to ever make it. So I'll leave you with my own impressions and my personal experiences, which again are missing so many places and names simply because I had a very limited amount of time. There are so many items left on my to-do list in Armenia, including, for example, House Museum of Sergei Parajanov, the Armenian avant-garde film director. I couldn't even manage to sit down and watch his movies. I just can't find time. But again, from what I heard, one needs to watch his movies annotated or with some sort of commentary. Otherwise, it's really difficult to understand the Armenian iconography that he rhymes in a very let's say, surreal way. Or for example, this place I stumbled upon just on my last day in Yerevan. It's called Hey Art Center for Contemporary Art, which is reliving its renaissance that began in 2021 after the pandemic and active years of war. I would love to go back and see what they're doing there. It does look promising. And don't get me started on countless little art studios and workshops in Gyumri, the only city we visited apart from Yerevan. And there are many other things I missed that I never knew. So if you are from Armenia or if you know this country very well, feel free sharing your favorite spots in the comment section down below. I will add them to my to-do list for the next time. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I inspired you to put this country on your traveling map and at least consider it for your next vacation. Thank you once again, and I'll see you in the next one very, very soon. Bye!